Kia ora, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. It is good to be here. Today's guest was the previous massage therapist for the Wellington Hurricanes, who play in the Super Rugby, as well as the New Zealand All Blacks, who play on the international stage. In addition to this, she was also featured in a book called How We Got Happy, and she has a blog called We Are Only Human. In these two different forms of media, she talks about her journey through depression and things that she is doing to help her overcome that. In addition, she also really focuses on trying to break down that stigma around mental illness, as well as seeking help. So today, enjoy your episode with Miss Cheyenne Harper. It's alright, does it sound okay to you? You sound good?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
I think so.
Yeah, no, like I said, with your sister, honestly, when I met her, she was just like she was so shy. And then I remember you went away, like you went to go order this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And then she's like just looking right at me, just like point blank into my eyes, and I'm like, oh no, she's reading me right now. And then
She could see my soul.
and then she like wanted me to like open up the pencil case thing.
Oh, yeah.
I grabbed it and I was like, oh, this is cool, but how come? I was like, do you go back to school tomorrow? She's like, and then I was like, oh, where do you go? And I was like, do you go to kindergarten? She's like, and then I was like, where do you go? She's like, Kids Adventure. And I was like, oh, cool.
Oh my gosh.
Where's that? And she was like, Wellington. I was like, when I was 3, I didn't even know where the hell I was.
I know.
I was like, where's my mum? Where's my dad?
She's so advanced. It's so crazy. But I guess because she's like an only child, so she's only around adults.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I mean, I wear her siblings and whatnot, but we're like 20 or 30, almost 30.
Yeah.
So, yeah, she's only like growing up with adults, so she's learned how to speak really well, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then with her kindergarten, her kura, she's just learning how to like play with kids,
Right.
and like, you know.
Yeah.
But she's very, very helpful. Like all her teachers say that she's just like their number one star helper, and she's very nurturing. She looks after all the kids and
Yeah.
things like that. So yeah, I think it's just because she's just used to being around adults.
Sure. Was that like when you were growing up with your siblings though? Did you ever notice that? Because you're the oldest of the three of you.
Yeah, yeah.
Were you like a I feel like you've got a nurturing side to you.
I'm very nurturing and protective
Yeah.
of like my younger siblings. I think it comes with being the oldest as
Sure.
well, but my sister and my brother were both we're very, very close in age. My mum had 3 under 3.
Right.
So we were like, I think I'm like 16 months apart or 18 months apart between me and my sister, and then
Yep.
there's only 11 months apart between my sister and my brother.
Right.
So very, very close. So yeah, we've always just been really, really close as friends as well, and like growing up together, we were always just with each other. We had each other
Yeah.
growing up. So yeah, so I just always feel like I'm very protective of them.
That's like the good side of having close siblings, right? Because I had my brother he's like I think he's about 2 years almost to the date, like 2 years younger than me.
Yeah.
And he just like, we were great friends as well because we were all we had.
Yeah.
Especially like when our parents went through like a breakup and all that sort of stuff. Like he ended up being my one friend that I had because I was like moving different places.
Yeah.
But like that's the great stuff. And then there's the smaller things like, you know, he's always wearing my clothes, he's always getting on my nerves, like all those different things. And you probably had that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just especially with having a sister. My brother, I feel really bad for because he grew up with like 2 sisters.
Sure.
And so we were always like wanting to put makeup on him and like dressing up as a girl and like all this kind of stuff. But yeah, so my sister really does. I mean, even to this day, like we have to share a car and it's just like, oh, but I want to use it, but I need it. Like, you know, like, and I'm like, oh God.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah.
But it sounds like you had like that friendship from the beginning, because I know that me and my brother, like we went for a period of, we literally would say to each other, I hate you, like, and we would hate each other's guts. Like I didn't want to see him.
Oh my
and we'd
gosh.
just get into like fights and all that sort of stuff. But like now that I'm older and I think I've moved away and I've
Yeah.
gone back down to Dunedin and he lives here now and we only see each other. Like he's the one reason I want to come back up
Yeah.
and see him. I'm just like, gosh, I remember when we were young, I just wanted to kick your
I
ass.
know. I hated you when we were little.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that would, luckily for us, yeah, we've never ever had any sort of like arguments, or I mean little things here and there, but yeah, we were very lucky that we just didn't hate each other when we were little. Still don't now.
Yeah, well, that's great. Did you ever go to the same school as any of them?
Yes, we did. We all went to the same primary school, and then we all went to the same intermediate, and then it hit college, and then my
Yeah.
sister and I went to Wellington East,
Sure.
and then Luke went to Rongotai College.
Yeah.
So
I was just going to say, because that's when it gets like, that's when you start realizing that you're living like your own lives, because you're either going to be like, for example, I was Ma'ata's brother, and then to everyone else, like, oh, that's Troy's brother. But it's like, what about me? Like,
Yeah.
that's not just Ma'ata, that's not just Troy. Like,
Yeah,
it's just like, oh, because we're at the same school now. Like, oh, he's not like his brother. Oh, he's so different from his brother. And they're just like,
absolutely,
because we're just ourselves.
yeah, isn't
Yeah.
that crazy?
Yeah.
That you just get referred to as like certain things.
Yeah.
But you're right though. Like Luke has always been at a school with a sibling, whereas I have been at a school without a sibling. So did my sister. But then when we hit college, everyone got to be like, well, like Luke finally got the chance to be at a school without his sisters being there.
Yeah.
And so, I think he really grew a lot in those years because, he wasn't referred to as like, oh, that's Cheyenne and Diani's little brother. Do you know Cheyenne and Diani? Yeah, that's his little brother. Like, that's their little brother. So, yeah.
And then you feel like you have some sort of reputation to live up to, because it's just like, oh, you know, like all the teachers know you and they just assume you're going to be the same. It's like, heck no, man. I want to be anything apart from him.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I don't think about it like that.
Just society, man. They just try to box us and just kind of categorize, I guess, the easiest way we can. And so that's one question I actually always think about, is because over summer, I've been catching up with so many different friends that I knew from like high school, even primary school, like back that far.
Yeah.
And it's weird how you get to know them and how you see them now.
Yeah.
And like the essence of them is really, really much the same.
Yeah.
But a lot of us, so this is where it gets into the whole episode, is just that like a lot of us actually back then, even at primary, high school level, we're struggling with a lot of things. But that's stuff that we kind of didn't know either how to express, or we were never really given that chance to express.
Yeah.
So thinking about where you are now, like it's almost a decade from when you were at high school, and thinking about, I'm sorry to put you out
Thanks
like
to
that.
remind me.
But like the pressures that you had like at high school now of kind of social acceptance, all these different things. It wasn't really looking about building a really strong future and all that. It's just like, okay, how am I going to go to school tomorrow and be one of the most liked people? Like, has that changed for you? And has that been something that you now think about and you're just like, man, I wish I could go back and tell myself these things?
Yes, definitely. And it's a tricky one, because when you're in high school, like you don't think about other things apart from, yourself and what's going on for you between friendship groups and relationships and the social things like going to a party and drinking, like, all that kind of stuff. When you're in it, you don't really think about it. And then you sort of come out of college and it's like you get hit with adulthood, basically. Like, and you just have to be an adult. And I've learned through all of this is that, like, experiences make you the person who you are. So, like, whatever you go through, it's teaching you something.
Absolutely.
And you learn about yourself when you put yourself out of your comfort zone or... Yeah, mainly out of my comfort. That's where I've learned a lot of things. It's like putting myself out of my comfort zone. And the more you do that, the more you learn who you are and what you like, what you don't like, what you're going to put up with, your boundaries, things like that. In your friendships and your relationships and your family environment as well. And I think once you get to know yourself, who you truly are, you become confident in yourself. And that's something that we don't have when we're younger. We don't have that confidence because people are telling us so many different things.
Sure.
And you can't really make decisions for yourself. And, but once you do, and once you're able to do that, I feel like you can just, be able to tackle whatever comes at you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you went from, going to school where you're pretty much told every day what you're meant to do.
Yeah.
Like you have the time that you're like, I'm going to go from there to there, but then you made a decision to go into further study after that, and that's kind of like on you. That's your first getting to know who you are and choosing what it is that you want to do. So why was it that you actually went into that? Because that's it is cool, and it's something, but it's not something that's this is when you finish school you go to here and do law, you do medicine.
Yes.
But you went into wanting to be do massage.
Yeah.
And was that straight after high school that you went into that? Yeah.
Yep. So I was really lucky because I knew what sort of industry I wanted to be in when I was in college. I was like, I'm going to be in the sporting world. I'm going to be either an athlete in some sport, one way or another, or I was going to work with them.
Right.
At the end of sixth form, I decided, okay, I'm going to do physiotherapy.
Right.
And I applied in 7th form to both Auckland and Otago, but I hadn't done the right subjects in
The
6th form.
prereqs for health side, yeah.
And I was like, what? Like, no one told me that. Like, no one told me I needed these, and have to have done those subjects in 6th form. So I was either able to do a bridging course up in Auckland, and I just thought, I can't be bothered. I think it was going to take 5 years for a 4-year degree, technically. So I went to my careers advisor at school, because I didn't even know that we had a careers advisor at school until 7th form. My last year at school, I was like, oh, is that what you do? So I went to her and I said, look, blah, blah, da, 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 da. And then she was like, oh, how about you look into other courses? And I stumbled upon New Zealand College of Massage, where they offered sports therapy, which was exactly what I kind of wanted to get into.
Sure.
And so, I just decided I was going to do that. It was only a 2-year diploma or a 3-year degree, but in my mind I was like, I'm just going to do the diploma, see if I like it, because some of the topics that we covered in those 2 years would mean that I could go straight into physio and only have to do a year and a bit, or you know what I mean, or 2 years instead of the whole 4. So I just did that, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I was just I was just in my element, and I really, really enjoyed it. After the 2nd year of my diploma, I decided to take a 2-year break because I had enough of study. I was going through a lot in my personal life, and just things were getting a bit hectic. So I took 2 years off, and I just worked full time, a little bit of massage here and there, but mainly as a gymnastics coach, because that's what I had been doing since I was really young.
Right.
So it was my go-to. And then I went back into the degree. The degree was only a 1 year, and it was just, best decision ever to go back and do my degree.
Right.
And then,
so,
now
but
I'm here.
the first one though, so if I go through and I do the math, you're only maybe early 20s, 19, when you decide that this is too much.
Yeah.
When I was 19, 20, and things were just getting too much, I was like, nah, okay, there's only one way out of this. Head down, keep going. The thing I needed to do was actually take that break.
Yeah.
And because you're so young, the last thing you want to do, you're like, I'm getting old. I'm 20 now. I'm going to be retiring in 4 years.
I know.
That's your mindset at that time. But how did you know that, okay, if I take some time out, I'll actually come back better?
Yeah.
What was it at that age?
I think I was literally forced into it, just with what I had been going through in my personal life. I had 3 really close people die within a year, and just things there was stuff going on with my family, my parents, and I was sort of all just crumbling down, breaking down.
Sure.
And so I was sort of forced to have to just take a step away from something.
Right.
And study was one of the major stresses back then. Even though personal stress is stressful, I found that I could just pick something to let go of for the meantime, focus on all of that stuff, all the other stuff, and then go back into it. And I knew that I could go back into it. So I was like, it's an easy decision. Yeah. I just have to drop it and then come back to it. Yeah. It did mean that I could have missed out on opportunities at a younger age, but you just got to take risks, and that was just one of the risks I had to take to be able to be okay. Yeah,
and I think that's something we're going to get into, is that yes, you could miss an opportunity, but the thing is, if that opportunity had come when you were at that state that you were in, you could easily just ruin your whole reputation, because you're just I can't work hard, my God, and they're oh, she's unreliable, blah blah blah, because no one knows what you're going through. No. And if you just say, yep, I can do this, but you're barely hanging on, and then you just do a shit job, everyone's just gonna be like, why the heck?
I know, what a waste of time that was. Yeah.
And then so after your degree, so during the degree component where you're just doing that extra year, do you get hands-on experience with different teams and stuff, or how is it that you managed to put yourself in a position where you're working with the top tier rugby teams in New Zealand?
Good question. In the degree, even in the diploma too, we were really lucky, because a lot of our community hours that we had to achieve throughout the year were set up through the college, so they had people they knew that we could work with. So a lot of the teams were just the local sporting teams, so like the Pulse, the Phoenix,
Sure.
the Wellington Saints, all those
Wait,
things.
so you mean local as in like professional teams?
Yeah, professional.
Not local like you're under 10s now. Okay, right, cool.
No, I
So
mean
we're
like
talking like the professional
professional.
teams in the different sports. Okay,
Yes,
right,
yeah.
awesome.
We had other options like, so if you didn't want to do the sports side of things,
Yeah.
you could do other things like neonatal at the hospital, working
Right.
with doctors and nurses and mums of prenatal babies. You can work with the New Zealand Symphony Orchestra, the New Zealand Ballet, you know, all the different options you could choose. But I knew I was wanting to do sports, so I knuckled down into those options. And then it was actually after my degree, I'd finished and I had like set some goals, and I said, okay, in 5 years' time, I'm going to work for the All Blacks. That's my 5-year goal. Until then, I'm going to do step by step. And then it just so happened that I like grew up with a few guys in my like childhood, and they had been playing for the Hurricanes. And he sort of just reached out and was like, oh look, like, you know, my massage therapist is, I think she was on maternity leave or something like that. Oh, can you just fill in for the meantime? I was like, yeah, sweet as. So I did that for a little bit. And then about 5 months later, I got the call up to do the All Blacks. And I remember looking at my phone and it was like, you know how it comes up with like no ID?
Yeah.
I never answer those ones because I'm like, it's IRD or it's
I owe
MSD
someone
coming
money
after
right
me.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I owe some tax somewhere or something. So I didn't answer it. Oh no, I did answer it because I was like, oh, I just feel like I need to answer this phone call. And and he was just like, hey, like it's blah, blah, blah from the All Blacks, like la, la, la. We've heard your name through Wellington Hurricanes. I know you've been doing some work for them, blah, blah, blah. Like, would you be keen? And I was just like, no. I was like, yeah, okay. But I didn't want to sound like hype girl. I was just like, yeah, sure thing. I'll just let me check my schedule. I'll get back to you. But yeah, and I was very lucky. I just been working with them for 5 years now before I moved to Melbourne last year.
That's so cool. And so getting into that, so even with working with the Hurricanes or working with any kind of sports team where people are going to be on TV and all this sort of stuff, like it's very easy to kind of lose your cool a little bit because you're going in there to do a job. How is it that you separated yourself from like a fan of just like, wow, like I've always wanted to be here to like I am actually a professional and I need to go in and do my job?
It's pretty easy.
Yeah.
I have found myself in moments like it's almost like catching myself out like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here doing this. Do you know what I mean? It's more like that. I see at first it was just I have to be professional, you know. I want to stay in this line of work, you know. If they just see me come in and like you know, act crazy or like not do my job properly, I'm never going to be here again. So at first, the first few times I worked with them, it was just like head down, knuckle down, don't talk, you know, don't do something that you'll regret kind of thing. In terms of like, you know, saying something to someone or like, you know, ask them too personal question, you know, even the conversation, you've got to be really, really wary of like your boundaries. We learned a lot of boundaries or things to do with boundaries when I was studying. So I already had the tools to just be aware. And then after a while, like after a few years, you get to really know the people you work with. They don't like, they almost become friends really. You see them a lot. So, it was a lot easier just to build rapport with them once you got to know them a little bit better. But for the first little bit, I was just made sure that I just did my job. You know, in and out, like,
What did you think was the most important part of your job? Because like a lot of people would see like someone who does massage and they're like, okay, the massage is the most important aspect. But like if the person's not comfortable with you, like you can't actually relax. When they're all this, and I think a lot of people think about like the different jobs we do and they don't really consider the human aspect of it and that you're actually dealing with someone, you're having to talk to someone and it's quite intimate. Like you're literally like on their body working around. So like what was the most important thing for you to actually make sure someone was comfortable being with you?
Communication. That was the biggest thing. I would be able to, when someone would come in or when one of the rugby players would get on the table, like you can just feel the energy. So initially I went off that. If they came in relaxed, you know, after a big training, they came in tired, you know, I could feel that. So I would go off that. There were always like a few questions that I had to ask at first, like, where do you need work? Are you injured? You know, things like that. How hard, how soft, you know, because some rugby guys just want relaxation and that's nice because it's nice and easy. But, you know, and some people want really hard. So you got to work out what they want. And then once you get down into it, you sort of just wait. Or I wait until they ask me a question. If they, you know, spark conversation, I'll conversate back. And then it got to a point where I got to know the guys really well. And so I would just be like, oh, you know, how's your family? You know, how was your trip away to, you know, things like that. And and I think after communicating at the beginning, getting to build that rapport, people start to just feel really comfortable with you. And it makes a difference. Like if you're getting a massage and you're not feeling relaxed because it's like awkward in the room or it's like uncomfortable in some aspect, they're not going to get the treatment that they need or that they deserve. You know, it's such a, the physical side of things is good, but you want to get that like mental therapy and that like help. But then you don't want to overstep the boundaries either. You don't want to become their counselor or their like therapist, you know. So yeah, it's a fine line, and I think that nowadays it's become more about the mental side of things too. At first it was the physical, you know, just getting a nice massage, but now it's just, it helps when people can feel comfortable to talk about things.
100%. Yeah, and it's just knowing when you can like actually respond back, but then just be like, ooh, that's kind of not my area as well. And I had something with just with most people who have the practice and they deal with so many people all the time, what is like, do you ever give them homework to do or like things that they should do, or are there any things that when people come in you're just like, not this again, because it like happens so often, just so that people listening will be like, okay, if you go to get a massage, don't do this.
Well, you get a lot of people, and I mean I do it too. Like I've been to a physio before and they're like, do your exercises, and I'm like, yeah, sweet, and then I come back the next week, have you done your exercises? And they know straight away that you haven't. So it's just one of those things, like if someone does tell you to do something, you know, try to do it, but if you don't do it, like be honest about it, just because we know, like I can tell you haven't been hydrating, I can tell you haven't been working on your posture, like all that kind of stuff. But I think just I'm a hypocrite though, so I know what it feels like to like be told something and not do it. But just listen to your therapist, really.
And then communicate if you don't listen. So like if you didn't listen and then don't, just like,
just
you know, actually, and then they're like, make sure you like limit the alcohol around this time. You're like, did I? I can't. So just don't try.
You don't, brush it under the carpet, because we don't.
Fair enough. And we were talking about so you were talking about the mental side, and I do really want to get into that, and that's where I want to spend a large proportion, because that's where you've dedicated a lot of your time to yourself and like trying to build that up, but then you've also gone on a journey of sharing that with others. But before we get there, I think a pivotal step in actually having you see all of that sort of stuff happen was that you actually went into the business side of things. So if you just want to give us a little rundown on when you went from like, I don't know, just like being part of something to actually going and starting your own thing, just get into that and we can go from there.
Okay, so I never ever wanted to own my own business. I was just like, there's no way I can do that. It just sounds so tough. But after working for a few years in a clinic and with other sports teams and things, I just sort of thought that I would give it a go. And I was sort of pushed by other people too, like, oh, you should start your own thing, you know, it'll be a lot easier working for yourself, you know, things like that, like better money, obviously, because you're not taking a the other person's not taking a cut.
Like no overheads and stuff.
All that kind of stuff. So I was like, oh, yeah, okay, why not? So I started my own business, and I very quickly realised how hard it was. I loved massaging. The massage side of things was easy. It was the business side of things that I just freaked out on. I just didn't really know what I was doing. It stressed me out, which was not good, because I was having to go into the clinic to like massage all of these clients a day with the thought of like stress and needing to do things business side in my mind. And so I felt really not inadequate, but I knew like what I was doing was like good, and like the massage was, you know, people were coming to me for my hands-on skills.
Yeah.
But I was always stressing about the business side of things because
Yeah.
I never really knew how much work that was going to take, and I couldn't afford for people to do it for me. Like, it was all like on my own. So yeah, mentally it was stressful, and so I just stopped. I think it was in my 5th year that I was like, nah, can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I can't do it. And I can, like, hats off to people who own their own business, because it's just takes a lot of work and a lot of practice.
So did you find though, because like, you know, you going in to do something that you really, really love, did you find that you started resenting like the practice as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I started to, it was so weird. I started to not feel confident in my skills as well. Like, it just took over so much of my mental space, the business side of things, that I found that, I wasn't really concentrating on my client in front of me, and I would always, like, my mind would always go like in and out of focus. And yeah, so it got to a point where I just left my business stuff and only focused on my hands-on stuff.
Yeah.
And then, when it came around to tax year, financial tax year and all that kind of stuff, I was way behind the ball, and I just had to do it all in one day. It meant that I just halved my days. So I'll do like clients in the morning, business in the afternoon, or clients in the afternoon, business in the morning. So you just learn to make do with what you've got and balance. It's all about balance, really. But I prefer, and I've chosen just to do the hands-on side of things, the business side. So I don't think I'll ever get back into a business again.
Right, but you've done it.
Yeah,
At least
exactly.
you can. It's like what you said right at the very beginning: is that everything you go through, or all of your experiences, are going to shape something somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
And at least you know what you like now and what you don't like. And then if you do find people who like that side of things, you can go into business with them.
Yeah.
Because they'll just be like, yeah, I love admin. And you're like, I love you. Come here. And then you're like,
that's work.
yeah. So all you need to do is like the massage stuff. And there's an interesting aspect of it as well, is like when people find the purpose or the work that they like doing. So say when you go to massage people, it's like weird meditation. Because if you talk about meditation, you talk about mindfulness. Mindfulness is all about like you in that moment. Yeah. So when you were talking, I was just like, oh my gosh, you're so in the future, because you're like getting anxious about having to do all the taxes or the admin, all that sort of stuff, and you're not actually with that person there. That's so cool.
It's it's so natural though. But like, if you're very self-aware, like, it's so natural. But if you're not someone who can pick up on things like that, then I would feel like it would be really hard. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Massage as well is such an energy thing. Like, because you've got hands-on. Yeah. Sorry. Right. Because you're so hands-on, and like, you know, you're touching someone else's body, like, it's like you said before, it is really like intimate, because it's just you and the person. And so, being able to work with other bodies, other energies, really like helps me to know about myself and like my energy and what I'm giving off and what I'm receiving and what I'm taking on from someone else. Because someone can come in with a really stressed out energy, they need work done, you know, they just need to relax, and sometimes it can be put on to you, or onto me. So I'll massage them, and afterwards they're like, oh, that was amazing, thank you so much, rah, rah, rah. And then when they leave the clinic, I find myself sitting there stressed out over nothing, or like, you know, like agitated for some reason. And I'm like, why am I like this? Like, why do I feel like this? And I have learned that it's because you can get your get their energy onto your hold that burden of theirs. But you just got to work through that. I just do some stretches, some breathing techniques in between every client. That's when I was working in my business with the All Blacks and the Hurricanes and things. It's just like on off. So you don't even think about it. But working with individual clients is that's what I would have to do in between clients.
Sure, yeah, because they like, with the Hurricanes and the All Blacks, they're professionals working with a professional, and they kind of like have their routine, and you're part of a bunch, like their regime. Yeah. But then like the stressed people who come to you like, I need this. They're just like been running themselves into the ground all week, and then they're just like, because they don't really get to unload on anyone, like that's their chance to relax, and then it just kind of comes out with it. Yeah, I feel you.
And it's not anyone's fault. It's just the way it is, really.
Yeah, and if you're not in a good place at that time, like you can fully ruin yourself as well.
Oh yeah,
You just
for
like take
sure.
it all on, and you're
Yeah.
just like, oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you know, some days I would just be like so drained after like a whole day of clients, and then some days I would feel like I could go for like run a marathon,
Sure.
you know, and it's all dependent on other people's energies and
Yeah.
your own and what you're going through too.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's a balance as well.
for sure.
That
And going through like what you're going through as well.
Yeah.
This is something that I find interesting because obviously we started a podcast and we put ourselves out there all the time. So I've read your blog, We Are Only Human, and I want to talk about the blog for a little bit because that is reading it. They're really, really short snippets and they're like doable. You could probably do it in a couple of days, but that's how fast it would take you to read it.
Yeah.
But actually being able to digest a lot of it and actually confront yourself in it, because like what you write about is probably what nearly everyone is going through as well. But
Yeah.
you just kind of used your own perspectives on it.
Yes.
What told you in that moment to be like, you know what? I'm going to journal because I see throughout it that you love journaling.
Yeah.
And it's basically like you just took something from your journal and you're like, you know what? I'm going to put this out for everyone else as well. What gave you that confidence to be able to be like, you know what? I'm going to put this out to the world?
Pretty much, like you said, it all started with journaling. I would just write everything I needed to have that release. I also found that through journaling, I was reading back and, you know, even like a year, 2 years later, I would read back on my journals and I would just be like, oh my gosh, I wish someone had told me this when I was going through this specific thing. And I'd sort of bounced around in my mind. I was like, oh, maybe I should I think it started with writing a book. I think I was like, oh, maybe I should just write a book, like just have my journals just written out for the world to see. And that way it could help someone going through the similar things to me and learn earlier than I did. Like I'm lucky still because I'm still like youngish. I became who I am today through my journaling and learning from other people's experiences and things. So I think it bounced around in my head. I was first writing a book and I was like, oh no, I own a business. I can't think about doing that. And then I think one of my friends actually just suggested it. She's like, oh, Shai's like, you should write a blog and just put it online, you know. I was like, oh, that's a good idea. So it just started with one piece of writing and I was like, oh, I'm just going to put it out there. Like if it helps one person, that's all that matters. Like that's all I care about. And so it started with one. And then got a little bit of interest and I was like, oh yeah, cool. And then it started with another one. And it was just, it was literally things I was going through at the time I would write about and then send it out there. There was a couple things that I had gone through in the past that I had written about, but most of them were pretty like what was going on for me in the present and putting it out there. And it was just crazy how many people would message me saying the exact same thing, like, I can't believe you're going through this, like you of all people. And I was like, what do you mean? And it's just like, then you get into that sort of thing, like you look at someone and you think oh my God, they're so like perfect, you know, you wouldn't think that someone like that would be going through all of this. So yeah, it was just really nice just to hear feedback from people saying that it helped them in some sort of way.
Right.
And so I just kept doing it. But I haven't done it in a while, but that's just because I think that was just a phase of my life that I had to do in that time and now moved on to like other things.
And what made you choose the name?
We Are Only Human. I think it's a song.
Okay.
We're only human. That thing.
Yeah.
I think. And then I was like, that's so good.
Yeah.
Because we're all only human.
Exactly. Yeah.
Sounds so cliche.
Because I think we get to this point where we like think we're cyborgs. And like we can do all of these different things and when we're they're stressed, it's like, don't worry, I got it, fam. And it's just like, if I just, but like we don't take care of ourselves because we honestly look after ourselves like we look after our cars. And like people who don't really you know, they just like drive the car and they'll just put in the petrol sometimes, you know, but they're
Oh my God, that's me.
oh,
I don't look
it's
after
like,
ours.
it needs to get serviced, all these different things, but
Yeah.
we're just like, oh no, it's okay.
It'll be all good.
It'll work. It's got
Yeah.
petrol.
Yeah.
The
It's still
wheels are kind of,
running.
yeah, exactly. And we'll just keep going, and then it'll just be like, until it gets really, really bad, do we decide, oh, we need to do something about this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Until it starts breaking down on you.
Yeah.
And putting out. That's when you're like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
I should have done this ages ago.
So remembering that we are only human. But the thing is,
Yeah.
with the time that you kind of started writing that, so like that was, I mean, 2019, 2020, and 2021 now, it's like everyone's in that self-love. Everyone's in this like
Yeah.
self-compassion movement, all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But you were doing it before, like you were just like, oh gosh, if only we could like tell ourselves these nicer things, and if only we could just take a step back every now and then. And that was at a time that I think no one was really putting that out anyway.
No.
So you like got onto it really well.
Yeah, I actually thought about that the other day, like, and I think that's why I got such a huge response, I suppose, to my blogs and what I was doing in my life, because yeah, a lot of people weren't aware of self love and, you know, and self like therapy, I suppose. Yeah, and like now that more people are talking about their life, it just becomes more normal. And I know we've got a lot of work to do in terms of like help out there for people, but I think the best way to learn is just like, one, by going through it and getting through it, and then two, by just listening to other people's stories and how, you know, they got through their journey and things like that. So yeah, I'm really lucky that I got through that when I was younger, and being able to be a person that people can come to and things like that. Yeah, but I'm loving how normal it is nowadays, and so frequent. Like every time you go online, it's always like, yeah, people's journeys and how they're getting through it.
Now, I'm not sure if you go through it too, but I definitely go through it a lot of the times where, so we'll put out all of these different, like we'll put out content and we'll talk to people about different things and how we should help ourselves, all these different things. Like we could probably get PhDs on knowing what it is we should do to help ourselves.
Yeah.
Like we are so good at it, at saying it, right? But how good were you at actually doing it? Because like a lot of the times when I talk or when I put things out, when I write things, it's not, I mean, it might help someone, but a lot of it was me talking to me. And I guess yours came from like a journaling aspect where you would write in your journal for yourself and then putting it out to the world. It's like, hey, I'm helping you. But really, it's always a reminder that you need to start doing it as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I have gone back to my blogs when I've gone through say like heartbreak or something like that. I've found I've gone back to my journal, to my journal and my blog, and I've read the specific blog about heartbreak, and I'm like, okay, if that's what I did back then I'm going to do that now. So I would like go back into that state of, you know, looking after myself and not putting too much pressure on myself and just going through the motions with a heartbreak or things like that. So yeah, I find that you do lose your way a little bit, you know, because when life's going good, life's good. Like you don't need to practice, you know, your meditation, your journaling, your things that make you feel good.
Right.
As soon as something goes bad or something gets shifted, that's when you start freaking out, and that's when I have to know like what I've done before, and I go back to my toolbox and I say, okay, these are the things that make me feel good. I'll do these for a consecutive amount of days until I'm good again. But I do find I should just do them when I'm good as well. You know, you might as well just keep it going. Yeah, but I do practice what I preach often, every day, try to. But yes, in the past or like even recently, I've been all good. I haven't journaled since I think a couple of days ago. I did an entry into my journal. But little things become almost second nature. So a lot of things that make me feel good is staying present and giving like gratitude. Really, every day I wake up, I think of 3 things I'm grateful for. I become present in moments that like I have to be present for, and that's through massage too. I've practiced that a lot. It takes a lot of practice. And journaling. So it just comes down to second nature. Some of the things that I do to make me feel good.
That's awesome. And it's like with so when you were talking about massage and you were talking about like meditation during it, that's a weird thing that I've been trying to practice, because I used to always think you had to meditate by sitting down on like a cushion, light some incense and like get some candles and stuff, but you can actually meditate during walking. So I've been like practicing that. It's just like, okay, I can feel the wind going past me, and just like being right there and just like, oh, I stood on a stone, ouch, ouch. And then like all those different things, rather than just being like, oh, I don't have 10 minutes to sit down and do nothing. But you have, like, if you're walking and you're commuting, you have plenty of time to meditate.
Gosh, yeah. It can be at any moment in time. Like, we could do it right now. You know, like, we're sitting here, I'm talking, I'm warm, it's bright light, you know. I always ask myself, like, when I do find myself not present, to bring myself back into the present, I ask myself, like, what can you see? What can you feel? What can you taste? You know, all the senses. And then once you do that, you're pretty much in the moment in that time. And then you can feel yourself in the moment. And it's a pretty cool position to be in, because it's obviously, like, when you think about the future, you get anxiety. When you think about the past, you get stressed, you know, all those little things. But when you're in the moment, you're literally just there and what you're feeling, and you're good, you know. You're real good.
And that's doing it for yourself, but then I guess for a lot of humans, like, we want to be the best that we can be for others. So that's why we get stressed, is because we're always thinking about everything else. But it's like, actually, if you were in the present right now and you're like feeling good about everything, you treat everyone else like, just by default, you're in a good place. So you'll treat other people with the same energy. So it's like weird that we have that tool there, but we barely go to it. We're just like, oh, I'll go buy them a present, and it's just like, it's like, oh, I know what I'll do, but it's like, but you're already thinking about the future and what I'm going to do for them. But it's just like, how about you just be here?
Just be present in the moment. And you can tell when someone's not present. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could be talking to someone and you know that their mind is not with you, because they're like looking away, or they're like, I don't know, they're just like not really saying much, or you know. You can tell when someone's not present with you. And it's always cool to see, though, and then, like, let them know, like, how to... Oh, it depends, actually. Like, I don't just go up to every old person and be like, you need to become present. This is how you do it. You know, it's just, like, interesting to see people in their own environment and doing their thing on their own journey, but, like, not being present with you. And it's just like, oh, you know, I once knew what that was like.
For sure.
Know, I feel, you know, it's all good.
And I think we all get to a point where we just like, because it is part of the journey, like you said, like, some of us are very lucky that we've had, well, not or lucky, fortunate, but also unlucky at the time when you're in it. You're like, I hate this. Why is this happening to me? But then depending on how you come out of it and like how you deal with it, it's actually one of the best things that can happen to you. And we, like, it happened to us young, so we are a lot more like examined in terms of how we look at what our head's doing and what the rest of our body does as well. So with you, like, you actually had the opportunity as part of your journey. So this, like, that's actually one question I had to ask. So I'll bring up this bad boy over here. So for those of you on the YouTube, this is How We Got Happy. And it's stories of health, hope, and happiness from 20 young Kiwis who beat depression. And Cheyenne was actually one of the people who are in this book. And so, like, it kind of goes through the stories of, like, you just talk through stuff that helped you get through your journey, but also, like, what made you start to realize that it was happening, what was going on at the time. And it's just really cool. And you were 25 in this, so this is a while ago. Sorry to bring you up like that. I mean, you're not 40 now, but my first one was like, how did they actually find you?
It's just through someone I know. So one of my really good friends, he reached out to me, and he said that one of his friends was thinking about starting this book, and they were looking for Kiwis who had beaten depression. So they didn't want anyone who was sort of still going through the really, really low points of it. They wanted stories of people who had come out of it and what they could share with the rest of New Zealand or the world, I suppose. And so he got me in contact with Eve, who was one of the authors, and she asked me a bunch of questions. And asked if I was okay to do it, if I was mentally okay to share my story and my journey. And I was like, anything to help. I mainly did it just because I knew that, just from my blogs and my own journey, my things I've been through, I knew it helped people. So I thought, if this is just another way of helping other people, then, you know, it's just different streams of people as well. Like, my blogs were only sort of reaching, like, my social media following,
exactly,
you know, all my friends and my family, but whereas this has been sold all over New Zealand, so it's going to reach so many different people.
It's sick. It's so cool. And I so I went through it, and I remember I was looking at it, and I just remember there were a few questions that I had of the stuff in it, and it's not like, why did you say that, but more questions along the lines of like, at that age that you were, and you talked about some going to therapy, and you also talked about like having to be put on medication and all that sort of stuff, and talking through that stuff, and like, I guess the common mindset still around it for some people is that you only go to therapy if you're mentally ill.
Yeah.
But like, you don't have to. You can actually go all the time. And then when you're put on like drugs, that's because you're really bad.
Yeah.
And like, you're a weirdo.
Yeah.
So like, being able to open up about that, how did that, like, when did it click in your head that opening up about it and actually seeing that more people go through it than not was like, this is what you need to do?
Oh gosh, yeah. There's so much stigma around medication and going to therapy, but honestly, like, it's what has to happen sometimes, or most of the time, but a lot of people are too scared, I don't know, or with the drug side of things, the medication side of things, like, a lot of people don't do well on the medication. So I was very fortunate that my doctor told me, okay, you're only going to be on these for 3 months because you just start getting addicted. And I remember going on them and I didn't feel high. I didn't feel low, which was the main reason why I was on them, because I was getting into these like depressive states. I just felt flat. And sometimes for some people, that's all they want to feel. They just don't want to feel anything but just a normal thing, like just a normal flat rate, basically. But I couldn't do that. It was just felt too weird. And so a lot of people don't go on drugs because of that or things like that. And a lot of people don't go to therapy because, like you said, like, it's like they think that they're so bad they have to go to therapy, which is not the case. Like, you can just go to therapy and have a discussion like this, talking about your journey. You know, you can just go to anyone and talk about what you're going through, because it does help. And talking about that kind of stuff and bringing it out there, just the more people normalize it, the more people are going to do it and like feel the confidence to go on medication if they have to, or go see a therapist, or go talk to other people, because it really does make a difference. And at first, in that book, when I said it, I was like, oh gosh, I just don't want people thinking I'm like crazy, or people thinking, oh my god, she was real depressed if she had to go see a therapist or go on medication. But it's what I had to do. It's like what I've been through. So the fact that I could do that and still come out the way I am now, like, that just goes to show that it does help for some people. It might not help other people, but that's okay. It'll help them to find their ways of how to deal with what's going on for them. So
So it's just knowing that, like, you can go at any point and it might work or it might not. Yeah. But that's the thing, is like, you need to find out whether it will or not. Yeah. And we don't really know whether we're good or not until we actually properly look at it and gain perspective. Because all of us are like, yeah, we're doing pretty well. And then you like probably write everything down and you're like, damn.
Actually,
it's like, whoa, where did my tires go? Like, I'm losing the plot here. But just for people who are listening and people who, have been tinkering with the ideas of going to therapy, but like not too sure, what are some, like, were there any things for you that actually helped you get to that point where you're just like, this is what I'm doing and I actually enjoy this? Or something that maybe you've talked to a friend about, or they're just like, hey, like, maybe you should consider this, and then they would be like, there's common frequently asked questions about, like, okay, but if I go, like, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Has there been anything that you've tried to, like, help people with getting over that kind of?
Yeah, I just told them, like, I would just sort of tell people, like, have you, like you said before, have you considered going to therapy? Because I was told that, I think by my mum, or like, it was one of my family members. They're like, oh, have you considered going and talking to someone about it? Because it's different to talking to a friend or a family. This is a complete third party. They have no idea who you are.
Absolutely.
Know? Sometimes that makes people more confident to talk to someone when they don't even know them. Sometimes that pulls people back because they're like, oh, I'm going to be judged. But these therapists that are out there, they're all very professional. They listen to your story and they know how to rewire your brain, or like the tools you can have so that you can make yourself better. So I was told that, so I was like, okay, like, I'll give it a go. I did a fair few months of it, and it was amazing. Like it was really, really good. At first I was like really uncomfortable because, you know, I was like, this guy doesn't know me. I had a male therapist, which was interesting. This guy doesn't know me. Like, what will he know that will help me? And then, you just slowly get really comfortable into talking about what's going on for you, and they're coming from no place of judgment, which is really helpful. And I would just tell people about my experiences with therapy, and I would consider trying to get it through avenues that are free, because I know a lot of people find it's really expensive, because it is really, really expensive, even though it's really worth it. A lot of people can get therapy through work, like EAP or something like that, where you get like 6 sessions free, you know, things like that. Try that avenue first, because when you know you're not paying for it, it just helps you to actually just go, because you're just like, why not? It's free. All I have to do is like talk about my life, who knows what will happen from it. So, and then obviously if you're needing more sort of internal work done through your therapist, you can start paying and things like that. But it's just getting there. It's just starting, you know, taking a risk to better your life, and just, and if you don't like it, fine. You know what I mean? At least you gave it a go, you know.
But I think when you do go in, you have to be like open-minded, and it's one of those things that you understand you're going on a journey. I know that I've talked to a few people and they're like, oh yeah, I went to a counsellor once and like it didn't help, and I'm like, like 1 hour, like you're just getting to know this person, like no wonder why you feel like nothing much happened. It's just because like they're still just trying to figure you out, you're trying to figure yourself out, you're trying to figure out the room, so like maybe doing a couple of them as well. And it is not a bad thing to go to different ones, like if you felt like you didn't connect with
100%.
Like if someone came to you for a massage and it's like, Cheyenne, she's good, but like not really my thing, you just go to another therapist.
You just sort of find someone else, and you know, it's normal. That's a really good point actually. It's just, if you're not comfortable with your therapist that you have, like just keep looking until you find someone you're comfortable with. You know, I did that. I started with a male, and then I just got to a point where I was like, he's actually not helping me anymore. Like the things that he's saying to me, I'm like, I already know this. Or like, you know, like it's making sense for me now, you know, you're not helping me in any other way. So I decided to go to someone else, and she taught me a lot of other tools that I have in my toolbox now. You know, it's just so many, everyone's different. And so you're always going to learn from somebody. Like everyone you meet in your life teaches you something. So like no matter who you go to, therapist wise, they're always going to teach you something. So you might as well mix around and see who you're comfortable with, and stay with that person or move on, you know. So it's up to you and what you're going through.
And just for everyone who would have heard the title of the book and would have heard the premise of people who need to get into the book, and it's like people who have beat depression. Now, like, I guess the thing with this is that it is going to be a lifelong thing. And, you know, with you, I'm sure you still have bad days. I'm sure. So the difference now, though, is that you probably can get on top of it a lot quicker. So for you, and then, like, having that title of, like, someone who had beat depression, is it still possible for you to, like, fall into those sorts of ways, though? All
the time. And, like, because you just don't know what life's going to throw at you. And even though you do end up getting shit situations, I've got the tools to be able to bring myself back out. It doesn't mean I don't go through them hard. For sure. You know, like I will crash and burn at times, you know, because it just takes over me. But until I'm ready to do the work and like put in my tools and, you know, and get myself through it, it is crazy to think that like I still do, but it's just like that is life. Like depression, anxiety, it's a mental health like disease, you know, in your brain. So you're never ever going to get rid of all of it, but I've got the tools to be able to get through anything that I go through, and like different things will teach me different things still. I know that I'll probably get given something that I have no tools for, or like, you know, as long as I have a starting point and know what I need to do, like I know I'm going to be good. But just because I'm defeated depression, like, you know, it doesn't mean I don't go through it still.
It's one of those things where when things do hit you, instead of freaking out and then just be like, you're just like, all right, breathe. I know what to do from here. Or like, not all of it, but at least, like you said, you have that like, okay, I know who I can talk to if I need to. I know like what I do for myself at the beginning stages of things. And yeah, because I think when people go to get help, we're in this day and age where people think you're going to be cured right away. Yeah. But like this is the
instantly.
This is the stuff that just takes forever. And
yeah, it does.
Like, I think if we're all trying to attain like happiness, that's something that like you need to be practicing every single day. Because that's like a state that will come and go. It's not like you just like, I've got happiness and like you're just there.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Because life, like everything, like you said, just keeps changing.
That's right. And everyone's perspective of happiness is different. So you might see me and you're like, oh my God, like she looks so happy. But why am I not happy? I'm doing what she's doing, but I'm not happy. You know, it's because we're all perceive happiness differently. So you just got to find out what makes you happy and do that and find the tools to drive you to your own happiness, because my happiness won't be the same as your happiness.
Excellent.
Or like blah, 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 blah. So... yeah, it's another thing to remember is just everyone's different, and everyone has different perspectives, different happinesses, different successes, different values, you know, not everyone is the same. So not everything is going to make you like that, or like their journey might help you in some ways, but not get you to the point where you want to be.
Absolutely.
You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all learning.
We are all learning all the time.
Are learning.
Yeah. And in terms of every single day, and what I ask every guest on the show who comes on, just to like give us a tangible takeaway, even though we pretty much talked about it all the way through this podcast. But usually I'll ask, what is something that you do every day or close to every day, or a couple of things that you do that make you feel like you've optimized the day?
Definitely every day I would say getting up and being grateful.
Yeah.
Thinking or writing down or saying out loud in the mirror. 3 things. You can, if it's too hard for you, because sometimes it can be really hard to do that, just think of one thing you're grateful for, you know, and that just really starts your day. The moment you wake up, think of something you're grateful for, a few things you're grateful for, and it just really, really starts your day. I always like to say to get out of your comfort zone. Always do things to get out of your comfort zone. You're never going to learn anything when you're comfortable. But a lot of those things don't happen every single day. So that's just sort of like a life thing. Just to take risks and get out of your comfort zone. But yeah, I just every day wake up and just be grateful for something, and that always tends to start your day off at a really good rate. And then the rest is up to fate. Universe, whatever's the energy out there. So
that gratitude, just like, and being grateful every single day, and like waking up and just like, I'm here. I'm grateful for this, this and this. And it can be anything from, I'm grateful for generic things like family, my friends, you know, but I like to go a little bit deeper than that and say, you know, I'm grateful for my body because it allows me to move, it makes me happy, you know. I'm grateful for my eyes because I can see the world, I can see colours, I can see, you know, because you forget that some people, you know, don't have that type of thing, you know. They just like, you forget that people have like one leg or, you know, anything, can go through anything. So just waking up and being grateful for the things you have is definitely a good start to the day. And putting the why, I find, is quite important because it actually makes you treat it better, because you're just like, okay, like these aren't just 2 circles in my head, like these are actually for my vision and to like help me give sight and all that sort of stuff. So that's a really good point, really, really good point. And I'm sorry to like ask a PS question, but you just said get out of your comfort zone. Like what for you have been maybe like some of the biggest things that have been like the things out of your comfort zone that have taught you a lot?
Traveling by myself. So I would just sort of take off. I spent like a month in Canada, 3-4 months in Europe, England, like that definitely built resilience, and I became less naive about the world. You know, I was out there on my own, like everything I had to do was like basically to survive there, you know, or like, you know, learn about the world every single day. That was probably the biggest out of my comfort zone thing I would do in smaller things. Getting out of my comfort zone would be like doing things that I know would cause me anxiety.
Right.
So finding my triggers for anxiety or depression or whatever, and like doing that so that I can like just normalize it or like get over it or become stronger. Anything that you can do to make you feel like you're a stronger person and that you've grown in a particular way, just do that. Whether it's jumping out of an airplane or little things like going to a cafe by yourself.
Oh, yeah.
You know, having a coffee by yourself, having lunch by yourself, doing things by yourself. I feel like you're way out of your comfort zone because everyone feels like you're going to be like, you look like a loner.
Oh, for sure.
Like, I'm not going to a movie by myself. I'm going to be such a loner. I'm going to be judged by being alone, like, you know, things like that. But it's actually so good.
Absolutely.
It's actually so good for you. And it's just like, and it's fun. And you learn how to be with yourself and like love yourself even more, because if you can be with your own company, if you can sit down for an hour and just be with yourself, then you can be with any other person because you become confident in yourself, you know yourself. Being with other people are easy once you get to know yourself a little bit more. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And a lot of that getting to know yourself comes from you just actually spending that time with yourself, even writing down your thoughts and stuff so you can get to know how you process things, and just being nicer to yourself as well. And just like, you're not a loser. You're just enjoying your own company.
Just being patient with yourself and things like that. And it's hard. Like at first, like you're like, what am I up to? It is so tough, and it can, especially if there are things coming up for you that you had no idea was in the back of your brain. It's shit. It can be really shit, but it's got to be done for you to be able to move forward and release all of the things you need to, and learn about yourself and what's been triggering you and how to deal with the stuff that's going on in your head. It's where it starts, really, is being able just to sit with yourself and be like, okay, what's going on for me? And then dealing with it.
Very good. And for your last, like for that, and just thinking about where you're going now, so this will be out. So by the time this is out, you'll be back in Oz. And what are your, so like big things that you have either in like for yourself to do, or maybe like you're going to direct people to go and get different resources from you? What's kind of happening for you in the next little bit?
Look, I'm stepping out of my comfort zone by moving to Melbourne. I'm leaving all my family and friends behind. So for me, it's just trying to like build a life over in an unfamiliar territory. So I think I'll be just sort of focusing on that for now. But once I do that, like, I don't know. I actually don't know.
Good on you.
I haven't really thought about it. This year is definitely a go with the flow kind of thing. I haven't like thought about any sort of resolutions or intentions or anything. I'm sort of going with the flow. So just for now, like when I first move over there, the first few months will be just committed to myself and building a life in an unfamiliar territory.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. And that's a really good way to go about life. Is just take it as it comes, but be in the present and also have something with you that kind of like a purpose for why you're doing what you're doing, but then not getting too bogged down with the details, because when it doesn't happen, sometimes you can really beat yourself up.
100%. Yeah. And there's always so much pressure around that too, like having to do the things that you said you were going to do, you know, but shit happens, life happens, like it happens. So it's just, it's a good balance between going to do something and then letting the universe just sort of take over sometimes,
100%.
You know, just flow with it.
100%. And that's a really good place to leave us for today. So Cheyenne, thank you so much for coming on. Really appreciate your time.
No
all the best for the future. And for those who want to check out what she has been doing, so it's the We Are Only Human blog, but you can just go through it for your Instagram. I don't know how you get this book, but I was lucky enough that you gave me one, but if you could probably try find it somewhere, which is how we got happy. Other than that, follow her on Instagram, give her a message if you need anything, and all the best for your future.
Thank you.
Cheers.